You are listening to Get With IT, a podcast by ITOps Times. I'm Jakub, Lewkowicz, Multimedia Editor at ITOps Times. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast episode. Today, we're going to be talking about what are the most important elements of an effective security control strategy for software delivery. With me today is Gopal Dommety, CEO of OpsMx, which simplifies and automates software delivery. Hi, Gopal. Welcome to the podcast, and thanks for coming on.
Good morning, Jakub. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. Well, to start off, what are you seeing are some of the most important elements to have an effective security control strategy?
Yeah. So, Jakub, if you think about software today, there is I think about them as three sort of distinct phases. There's a development, there is sort of delivery, which kind of takes post code to testing, staging, scanning for security vulnerability, and then do deployments. Deployments are also get complicated, and then you have the third phase, which is in production. Right. Mm-hmm. If you think about a security strategy, right, we need to make sure that what goes into production or what gets shipped is the right code with the right dependencies, with the right configuration, right security, right people have touched it, etc. Right. So what goes into production is important, and how it got along the way will determine what went. And we also need to make sure that what is in production stays the same way. Right. So the sort of the most important, if you can think of the controls, how do you along this way as it gets to production, there are lots of these steps. So how do you, first principle is, can we get an end-to-end view of all the things that happen from a security point of view, all the scannings, there are lots of stuff that happens. The second is around, do you have the right gate or gates at the right places, and the third is that at speed and scale, are you able to remediate and take actions and exceptions? And so those are three sort of pillars of this should be the control strategy. The fourth is around implementation. Like today, since it's such as scale and complexity increases, most of it is like a lot of honor system that goes into saying, hey, have you done this versus have you done that? Or sometimes going back and checking on the honor system, saying, okay, has this scan been done? Is everything okay? I think at this speed and scale, if we don't have more than an honor system, it could sort of be a recipe for disaster. To give you an example, some of our customers have 24,000 pipelines doing 10 million deployments a year. At that scale, what's an honor system look like? But you also can't fully lock the whole process because it is 24,000 pipelines, 200 million developers, right? So I think, so those are the three, the four pillars. One is the end-to-end scanning. You have an end-to-end view rather than a point view of at each point checking. Then there's a gates. You need to make sure there are gates. Then you need to make sure there's remediation, exceptions, and then it just cannot be an honor system. You have to have a system in which this whole scale and complexity is captured.
I see. Very interesting. So are you seeing that a lot of organizations are using those four pillars in tandem or are struggling along some of the points?
Yeah, I think if you think about how we got here, every organization's maturity or adoption, security seriousness is at a different spectrum, right? I think because people have gotten very good at started using the tools. Earlier, there were these very secret scanning. There's a tool for SCA, for SAST, DAST. There are different sort of tools. Now, most of these, there are open source versions of these tools. The kind of tools have matured. So people are in that end-to-end scanning, maybe not end-to-end. They are pretty good at. They're getting better at having these checks or scans in place. They have that, but not many people are. Not many enterprises are having the gates fully automated. They still have a lot of manual gates. For example, this company that I told you, very large Fortune 10 company, the one that has 24,000 gates. So they have about a 5 for every process, every pipeline. They have a five sort of manual gates. So and that the second pillar is not as fully automated or systematized. And when you don't have that second pillar, the third pillar of remediating, taking actions and exceptions in a more uniform fashion sort of goes away. And people are getting slightly better at going away from the honor system to some sort of gates inserted. But I think we have a lot of work to be done to achieve maturity in all the 4 pillars. I mean, you kind of need all the 4 pillars to have security at scale and speed.
I see. And what are some of the risks in the software delivery process that people need to be worried about the most or need to pay attention to the most?
Yeah. So, the risks, the final risks that one, obviously we are very similar to before. You need to get the right code, right dependencies, configuration. People can erroneously or maliciously at speed. I mean, I guess the biggest risk is that now at the speed and scale, any small error, malicious or erroneously, can quickly go into production and bring down the system instantaneously. Okay. To give you an example, recently one of the very large customers, Fortune 100. Somebody mistagged an artifact from production to as test to production, just mistagged it, and it just went into production and brought the whole system down for 8 hours. I mean, the cost of that is probably in the tens of millions of dollars for that company, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you think about in the delivery process now, because you, instead of having 50,000 SREs doing deployments, you're having 200 million developers somehow involved in the process. The number of people that need to be sophisticated enough to do deployments is there, and then the scale of these releases pipelines has increased significantly. I mean, imagine like 10 million deployments by even 1/10 of that company. It's just a scale has increased. So when you have this scale and speed, that we need to so all these there are too many places in the delivery chain that could be exposed as potential attack surface, and security is as strong as its weakest link. And so and most people are recognizing it, actually, that this delivery part and deployment part is where you can start having problems in the delivery process.
I see. Yeah, it's very interesting. So it almost seems as if a lot of these points have to be automated, so that even like a tiny mismanagement or something can't set the whole system down. So are you seeing that's how the volume and complexity of software deployments has affected their security, like has pushed more towards automation?
I mean, Jakub, we have to, right? I think the automation is especially for security important, not just from a speed point of view. I mean, at speed, how can you how can you deliver with so many moving parts and so many checks to be done, right? It has to be done. I think the way, this is a critical challenge. How can we, quickly automate and still get security? Security is not something that we can compromise and say, hey, we'll get to it 2 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You need to get to it today because it's got reputational business risk. The question is, how can you automate without fully forklifting your entire delivery process? Mm-hmm. Reinventing your delivery process, because it's not easy, right? The delivery process is a lot of people involved, a lot of silos, a lot of different teams. You have the dev, you have the QA, you have the staging, you have the security teams, and the SREs. They all need to be aligned, right? You can't just quickly change the process. It's a people process problem, for which we think of a sort of the way we think is that there needs to be a layer that comes in and works on top of an existing delivery process itself. Mm-hmm. You can't just say, hey, to get security, you need to completely transform your delivery process by fully automating. Right? So you have to go away from the honor system, but still not fully reinvent your delivery process, because the delivery process will take you too much time to reinvent.
Right. Absolutely. Great. So moving on to the next part, what are some of the new capabilities within OpsMx intelligent software delivery, and how do they work together with to add security controls?
We need to automate the approvals and security controls. That's obvious because of the scale and speed. In order to do that, you need an end-to-end view, a comprehensive view, because if you miss any part, that's where the security vulnerability or attack can surface from, right? The most important, I said, is that the teams do not have years to get to security. They need to get to security now. Right. So I think from an OpsMx point of view, the first sort of a feature that we have is what we call synthesizing your entire process flow. Right, looking at all the data from all the pieces of tools that you have, be it the CI/CD tools, the build tools, deploy tools like Jenkins or Argo, Spinnaker, or the security scanning tools like SCA, Sneak, or the container scanning, image scanning, secret scanning tools. You kind of look at all of that and synthesize what is the way in which this code with the dependencies made it to production, what we call the synthesis. Mm-hmm. This is the foundational piece of understanding how something went to here, and we do that without needing to be a part of your pipeline. We think of it as we come in on the top, we realize it, right? I think that then the second piece is taking all the data from these tools in your process that we just synthesized. Mm-hmm. Can we give you a security assessment of the entire, what is going to make it into production? Mm-hmm. Right? Yes. Because there's so much data, so many tools. On average, there are about at least 10, 15 tools in a process, right? And to make sure that, how do you assess the risk levels and make it machine decisionable, but more importantly, also human understandable, because otherwise you'll have an alert fatigue. Right? What we call the assessment of the release. The third is taking that assessment. Can we, apply gates policy for compliance controls, risk assessment, just policy approvals and alerting. Mm-hmm. That's the sort of the set of features. And once that's sort of done, things go into production, and to be able to attest this entire synthesized flow, like, hey, this one went into production And this is all not just what is in the code and dependencies, but all the sets of actions and approvals and things that happen on the way, all the way here. So attest so that you can trace back and understand how it got there. And sometimes for some of our customers, this was a customer of ours who has to deploy into all the financials, like JP Morgan's or the Bank of America's. They need to deploy, and they're very core part of the infrastructure. And now their customers need to say that how it is delivered, they need proof. So attestation of that is the fourth, and the fifth is just doing this once it goes into production, the continuously sort of making sure that there's nothing else sort of has been new vulnerability has not been discovered by the open source community, and it somehow is still in your production environment, for example. So these are all the these are the 4 pillars of capabilities, or 4-5 pillars of capabilities that OpsMx is bringing to secure your delivery. I think the way we approach the problem is that we should be able to do it without you needing to forklift or transform your entire delivery chain. I mean, it's easy to say, hey, I am going to rip and replace everything.
Who's going to want to do it, right?
I mean, if you have the will, right? It's a lot of money, more people, just time, right? Just not feasible. Right? It's not practical. So that's our core sort of. So we are a layer that can come in and solve this problem.
All right, very cool stuff. So one of the points that you said, there seems to be, I've been hearing this a lot from people that I've been talking to, is that there seems to be a tool sprawl in the security field, just to cover all the different attack surfaces. So do you see that that's the next move for security, to have kind of a unified or more unified solution to be able to handle all of that?
Yeah, I think the tool sprawl is a real problem, right? And everything evolves like that. When you have security, you start having a tool sprawl, people kind of doing best of breed for each of the problems, right? I think in security, I don't think you can combine all these tools together. You just cannot, because they are used at different places in the delivery. They have different functions. So I think some of these tools will consolidate, but there will be still best of breed of each, just because some are earlier in the cycle and some are later in the cycle. Right. I think the way to solve the tool sprawl is to make it a data-driven security. And bring all the data from those tools that are required, bring a more comprehensive visibility and assessment. Is what we think is the way to solve, more like a platform approach rather than a unified one tool approach.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much for your insight today. Is there anything else that our audience should come away with, whether about security and software delivery or OpsMx?
I think the good, if I look back at our customers last 1 year, there's so much of awareness of security. And even I did not realize how much of the attack surface there is. Just sheer details. You can spoof the build server. I mean, even things like that I never, it wasn't in my realm of consciousness, right? So I think the one thing that I will leave away is that this is an area that is important, and it's kind of the weak link in the security that we all have to start shining light on, so that we all as an industry solve that problem. Otherwise, the delivery will get sort of bottlenecked and there's a friction. I think, but thank you for giving me the time to kind of share this view.
Of course, it's great to have you on. Well, it looks like that's all the time we have for today's show. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in today. Be sure to check out all of our weekly episodes on your favorite podcast listening platform.